it down. So here then, so that's that. That should be pretty straightforward now that you've got those examples. Then after that, you have to put down why do we think, and this is where at the top you've got the NDIS goal. We have to put down, it's not the patient's goal, it's the NDIS, their NDIS goal. NDIS or NDIA does not have any responsibility to fund anything that is not stated in the goals. So if we do anything that's not directly related to the goals, then potentially NDIS can say we're not going to fund it. Even if we've provided the treatment, they will not fund it. So it's really important that we put it there. Now, there is an exception. If somebody's goal does not actually include a safety issue or a functional issue that actually affect their everyday care at home, then this is where then we can actually put it there. So if this person is falling, but in their goal it doesn't say then that mobility needs to be improved or force prevention needs to be done, but this actually affects their safety at home. This is actually a life and death, potentially, or life and injury risk, then you can include it, even if it's not in the NDIS goal. But everything else that we're going to put in there, in this plan or in this recommendation, everything must relate back to how it's going to enable them to achieve their goals. And please state it, please quote the goal and explain why, how that this goal is going to be achieved this way. So you have to quote the goal, okay? Otherwise then they can't, you have to assume that they know nothing. You have to assume that they just need to be told. Think of it like a lawyer's document where it's very wordy. And because they're writing it in such a way, or maybe not a lawyer's document, maybe a government document, where it's really wordy, and because they don't know who their audience might be. And so you just have to assume that your audience, it's anybody that you can grab on the street. Okay, now where it says here estimated hours, then you can do a little sum. So in here, if I'm saying physiotherapy 1 hour per session, fortnight times 8 weeks, then it would be then 8 hours. Okay, now here, because of the therapy assistant involvement, I might not actually put the therapy assistant here. I might add another row. Okay, so insert row, backspace. So I'm going to insert row below and just put the therapy assistant here so that I can put their hours here. And this is where then I have to calculate, okay, in the whole year, if I'm doing half an hour, how many weeks are there remaining? And usually we work on 48 weeks per year rather than 52 because of 4 weeks of annual leave and public holidays. And so then how many weeks? And if you have difficulty, just put question mark. We'll work it out for you. We don't know, okay? Travel, you don't know, put question mark there. Put question mark there. So we will do something for you. So don't just leave something blank, because blank would make me think that you've forgotten rather than that you don't know what to do. Okay, but hopefully you're not leaving too many things blank that we have, or too many question marks. So we have to go through the entire form and do everything, because it's a lot of work. So I'd rather you do it so that you can claim all the hours. And then when we actually peer review, it's just a quick peer review to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. Okay, now AT consideration. So after that, hopefully that gives you some idea. And then AT consideration. AT consideration, well, we've thought about AFO. Just then we've mentioned about AFO. Roughly, not sure. Okay, so cost to be confirmed. Okay, so it may be AFO, maybe orthotics. We mentioned about a walker as well, and a 4-wheel walker. Okay, demonstrated value for money. Well, we're using therapy assistant to reduce, and usually I write something along the lines of to reduce dependence on professional input. Okay, yeah, and then family care involvement. Well, you have to put something in there as well. Maybe that, maybe when you're writing physiotherapy, you might add that training of carers to do home exercise program, or therapy assistant can be doing that to do, peer support for support workers, something like that. And then here, then you can say that carer involved through home exercise program, So don't write any abbreviations unless if you know that they really know it. Most people don't actually have, they don't know any of the abbreviations, so try to avoid abbreviations. Risk. Well, this person will continue to fall frequently, okay? And at high risk of injury because of, so you might say high risk of injury because of osteoporosis or something like that, okay? So you can put down that without therapy, so without regular therapy, participant will continue to fall, and that's a big thing. Okay, so you have to put down that you have to state the reasons because that strengthens the ability for the NDI support coordinator to approve what we want. Okay, so here it is. And so when you're writing it there, that should be done last. This part is done last, even though it is read first. It should be done last because you would have done all the assessments down below to help you formulate your summary. Okay, so so hopefully that the rest of the assessment you would have actually, you know, found out about all the intricacies and things like that. In one of the assessments that David did, the gentleman, he's got behavioral issues, making it difficult for him to settle down to do any exercises, and he's got cognitive issues, if I remember it right. And this is the reason why that we feel that this person, you know, on others in other situations, they might be able to actually do the home exercise program alone, you know, when they're given one, but they can't because of their cognitive issues or their behavioral issues. And so they need one-on-one support. And actually with one-on-one support, he enjoys the exercise company. And exercise is a really important thing because health and well-being is one of his goals. And so we had to actually word it that way so that we can support the reason why we think therapy assistant involvement is necessary, or physiotherapy involvement is necessary to implement the to put a program in place, and then therapy assistant to support. And we say that these the support workers, their support is shared amongst all the residents because he's living in a supported independent living situation. And so the support worker cannot devote a substantial amount of time to the one client, and therefore then the best way is actually to do it through a therapy assistant. So that's how we actually then worded it to explain why. So in the problem that you put here, it might be that the person has health and well-being needs, and this person has cognitive limitation and behavioral concerns that preclude them from being able to execute a home exercise program without one-on-one supervision. So it would be more than a physiotherapy eye, more than function. It's actually looking at their overall function to actually help you justify why therapy assistance is needed, why physiotherapy is needed, particularly for somebody who appears to be quite independent. They can walk around on their own. Why is it that they can't actually do their exercises on their own? So this is where the disability lenses, the holistic sort of view comes in. Okay, so that's this is the basic one. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, great. All right, I'm just going to delete this because I just inserted it on a random patient. All right, so let's go back to our slide. Now, so actually majority of, if I explain the SIL and SDA, then that will cover the other format of assessment, which is a more detailed format of the functional capacity assessment. So this is specifically for SIL and SDA. Now, again, try not to leave any blanks. If you have a blank, just put question mark because everything in there is intended to be filled in. All right. Now, in a SIL assessment, the summary talks about their housing needs, what we think is needed for them. And that's tricky because that will come through, and there is drop-down lists to give you the kind of recommendations. And you will be able to come up with it as a result of your assessment. Then you've got to put down the reasons why you think it's value for money. It provides stability, and whether other options are being considered. But the leading questions below will help you answer these questions. We have to see if a person is needing SDA, okay, then usually it means that the reason why they need specialized disability accommodation is because their needs is so high that it cannot be met in a normal accommodation setup. And therefore, they need accommodation that would specifically, it is about having a nighttime carer, either sleeping or waking in that accommodation setup. So specifically, if this person actually needs overnight care, that's where the SDA comes in and becomes really, really relevant. Or this person has very complex disability, so that you know, the home has to be set up in such a way, so somebody with acquired brain injury where they need full-time one-on-one care all the time would be somebody who really needs SDA as well. Because most likely one-on-one care, they're in a wheelchair, they're in a complex sort of wheelchair, they have a lot of contractures, they need they need full-time one-on-one care that it cannot be shared. You know, he has no capacity to participate in anything without that one-on-one assistance. So that would be an SDA example. Okay, now functional impairment, we summarize whether this person is severe or it's not severe, and that is can be done through the HUDAS or through, as well as the modified MBI or MBI. Okay, so background is pretty easy. What I want to highlight to you is these sections. Like, these are questions that we ask. So in an SDA SIL, we ask people, where would they like to live? What kind of housing preferences, and the type of houses. So a lot of it, the top part is about their housing preference, and it's pretty straightforward. So one of the, I did one with another OT, one of our OTs, and she has one, the client currently is actually in an SIL SDA supported living environment already. And she basically said that this person, and let's move on to the function, is independent with everything. And I said to her, how is it possible that they're independent with everything if they are, if he has a disability, he's intellectually handicapped, and so on and so forth. And the reason for that is that his care setup is so perfect that he is able to participate in everything relatively independently. And so here is where the drop-down list comes in. When you're assessing somebody's function, we have to consider if, particularly what is tricky in a disability world, is that if the person is well set up, they have their routine set up for them, they have the carers setting everything in place, and they have aids and the environment is already adapted, then they're not independent. They're not like independent in any environment. So this is where I say here, client is independent in any environment without aids and using normal techniques. So this is the difference in this functional capacity form. And it's the same as the form without the SDA component, that we are distinguishing whether somebody is functioning independently because they're well set up or because they are independent and they can actually go to any environment at all. So this is, again, communicating in a disability language. Okay, now I jumped a little bit from SIL, SDA, but with SIL, SDA, the one thing I wanted to highlight is the self-portrait. Okay, so here, we ask people, what is your ideal home? And so somebody, and this is very important because NDIS wants us to hear the client's view, and that view is really important. So in the example that I gave you just then about the client who is already in that setup, and the reason he's moving is because the landlord is selling the home and he has to relocate. And so what he said is that I want to live in the local area with one other person who has a disability and whom I can talk with. And so it was really kind of, it was quite a nice capturing of what he actually wants. And he wants to continue to visit his dad regularly, And so that's what he actually